Hey, what's up, Lightbolt Joe here. Today we are going to discuss Friday the 13th, A New Beginning. I had to just confirm because we're on a marathon binge here. Okay, so Friday the 13th, A New Beginning is the fifth Friday the 13th film. It came out March 22nd, 1985, directed by Danny Steinman. So Corey Feldman is back as 12-year-old Tommy Jarvis in the very, very beginning of this movie, the first 3 minutes, and then we get a time jump of 4 years later when Tommy's 16. We know that Tommy is 12 because the IMDb credit for Corey Feldman literally says Tommy at 12, so that's how we know Tommy's age. And we know that Tommy's not a 20-year-old, he's still a teen, and it's only been a few years, give or take. It hasn't been many years. No one specifically says the words 4 years later, but it's heavily implied that Tommy is now 16, 17, give or take. He goes to a halfway house. He's bounced around from mental institution to mental institution, for kids. But now that he's getting older, he has to be with, older kids, teenagers. So he goes to this halfway house. I have my notes. Hang on. I don't get a location, but it's not near Camp Crystal Lake. It's not near Crystal Lake at all. It's not near a lake house. It's a house, rural house that's operated by this guy and his assistant Pam. There's this little kid Reggie who's there, whose grandpa does the maintenance and cooking and stuff. And there's a bunch of residents. This is a plural, who are in their late teens, basically. Who's flirting with who's hooking up with who has what mental illness going on, and who, has certain problems. So there's this character, Joey, who's trying to help out, but he's got some stuff going on. And he tries to do laundry, but he gets the chocolate on his hands all over the laundry, and then he pisses off this guy who's chopping wood, and then eventually the guy literally axe murders him to death, and he's gone. And then paramedics come. This guy Roy's a paramedic. This other guy, isn't really fazed about this kid's death, but the other paramedic is a little fazed by the death. So then they take the body away, and then murders start to happen. So it's okay, so we get more of the first-person killer of murder. And so it's a matter of, how is Jason back from the dead? If Tommy Jarvis at age 12, if Tommy at 16 is having a dream of himself at age 12, going to Jason's grave, making sure that Jason's dead, even though people are digging him up and, he kills once again. So Tommy at 16 thinks that Jason is back specifically to kill him. And he keeps hallucinating Jason, all these things, pure hallucinations of Jason. So as the story progresses, we get more deaths of these teens at this halfway house from Jason. Jason has a new hockey mask, doesn't have the dent in the left side of the mask anymore, and he has blue arrows, blue triangles on his cheeks versus the red ones on the brow. So it's a different mask. So it's a different Jason. But how is Jason back, right? If Jason was buried and claimed to be cremated, how is Jason Voorhees back? So the entire movie, you think, because it's heavily alluded to the fact that Tommy is now the new Jason, that he's put on this new mask, he's taken up the machete to kill because he keeps seeing Jason in his mind, so it's obviously the ghost of Jason is telling him to become the next Jason, right? So as the story progresses, we then have Pam, Reggie, and Tommy, who turns out not to be Jason, fighting Jason. And then Jason's thrown off of another barn and lands on these spikes, and then the mask is ripped off to reveal the face of Roy, the paramedic, who happened to be the father of Joey, who was axe murdered a day before by that other kid in the halfway house. So it was really neat because it wasn't actually Jason Voorhees as our villain. Much like the first film, how we had Pamela Voorhees as our villain, we have Roy as our villain pretending to be Jason Voorhees, not actually being Jason Voorhees. So it's really interesting watching all of these chronologically in a full story because of how it's portrayed. So if it's 4 years later, give or take, we're in 1989, give or take at this point, and it's very interesting not having Jason Voorhees as the actual villain. You have a guy in a mask. It was very Scooby-Doo in a sense, very murderous Scooby-Doo, but it was very Scooby-Doo. Who's behind the mask? Who's behind the new mask? So Tommy then takes the new mask from Roy, keeps it with himself in the hospital, and puts the mask on. And the last thing we see him is holding up a knife to Pam. Is he going to kill Pam? Is he going to be the actual new Jason? We shall see. On to the 6th film. So my mind's a little blurred because I'm going between Friday the 13th films and A Nightmare on Elm Street films, and there's 2 different timelines, obviously, and there's 2 different plot points. So I'm just trying to focus. There's a 5-year difference in A Nightmare on Elm Street to A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, and there's a 5-year difference between Friday the 13th and Friday the 13th Part 2. That we know because it's verbally said by characters. So it's just a matter of what year did A Nightmare on Elm Street take place, because that's not technically referenced, but it came out in 84, so then does that mean the second film takes place in 89? I think I'm not going to think that much about the Nightmare on Elm Street films, just because Freddy's comical and he's a little wonky, so it doesn't really matter. But the Friday the 13th films, so far, we have actual timelines. Like, we know that Tommy ages. He's a late teenager. He's a mid-teenager. So, he's 16, and it's very well accepted amongst the fan base of horror that Tommy is 16 in this film. If he was 12 years old in Part 4, the final chapter, he's 16 in New Beginning, and then the 6th film, Tommy Jarvis is in it again, and he's 18, 19, something like that. That I have to confirm. I have to rewatch that. Obviously, it's on my list. So, that's our notes. That's us going over Part 5. And I've said this numerous times. I love Part 5. 4, 5, and 6 are awesome because of that Tommy Jarvis character. I don't know who made the Tommy Jarvis character and bringing him in different age groups to then fight Jason in all 3 age groups. I love it. I love it. It's so smart because it's different. You when people think of Friday the 13th, it's a campy, horror film about a guy in a hockey mask and he's got a machete and he's killing people, right? But there's an actual story that goes from one film to the other, and it's pretty cool because that's how fluid it is and it works. Nightmare on Elm Street is kind of the same concept of fluidity with plot, but you know what? I'm not even going to talk about that because I'm still getting through those movies. Right now we watched 5 Friday the 13th films so far. 1 through 5 makes sense chronologically, canonically, time frame wise. I will leave it at that. I don't want to jump the gun on speaking on Nightmare because there's a lot more films we got to talk about. These are my notes, right? I got post-its. I got actual the list of the film, the date it came out, and then the director attached to it, right? So I'm paying attention. I'm paying attention. I'm asking the right questions. I'm getting the right answers, hopefully. And yeah, I love the 5th Friday the 13th. I'm gonna wait until I see the 6th to declare the 5th my favorite. Even though the 4th is pretty awesome, but I really love the twist that it wasn't Jason. It was a guy in a Jason mask. And the whole time you thought Tommy was becoming Jason. Just double twists in a horror film. You would have never thought the 5th Friday the 13th movie would be the best Friday the 13th movie. Let's discuss it. Keep me posted. What do you think? Mucho mahalo.